right, let's get into our next discussion now. Kenyan opposition has postponed plans to swear in its leader Raila Odinga as an alternative president, easing political tensions and opening a window for possible talks with the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Opposition Coalition National Super Alliance, Coalition NASA, had planned to publicly inaugurate Odinga at a rally on Tuesday. And Kenya Independence Day, in what the Attorney General said this week would be an act of treason. Kenyatta was re-elected as Kenya's president with 98% of the vote in a repeat election held on October 26, which Mr. Odinga boycotted. Now, he had beaten Mr. Odinga in the original poll held in August, which was nullified by the Supreme Court on the procedural grounds following opposition allegations of vote rigging and other malpractices. Now, NASA says it will postpone the swearing-in after consultations and engagement with a wide range of national and international interlocutors. All right. With us in the studio is an African affairs analyst, Victor Ohai. Good morning and thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Victor, nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Raila Odinga is backtracking, postponing his swearing-in ceremony as an alternative president. This should ease tensions and, of course, maybe chart a way forward for Kenya.
I expect so. I mean, under the circumstances, it's the wisest thing to do. The reason is, I mean, unless you have the support of the West and allies, you'd obviously be on your own. He's a popular candidate, obviously, and if you like, this has been like I wouldn't call it family feud or rivalry. Their fathers were, you know, you know, they've been at it for over a generation. This is like second generation rivalry between two families, and this is the closest that the Odingas, if you like, have been able to get to it. Odinga was obviously very popular in this election. There were obviously a lot of malpractices, and the Supreme Court did what it had to do. And of course, across the continent and internationally, everyone applauded them because it takes courage, especially on the continent, to have a Supreme Court overturn or cancel an election with an incumbent. You know, but that gave Kenyans a second chance. Now, I think the mistake that Raila made was in withdrawing from the race for whatever reason. And then you cannot withdraw from the race and want to benefit,
expect to have your way.
to benefit from the results of the, I mean, you can't, you know, so...
you can't eat your cake and have it.
You can't eat your cake and have it, obviously. So, and that was a mistake. And if he had gone ahead to do what he had planned to do, the swearing and all that, obviously, and it is the truth, that would have been treasonable.
Yeah, which is what the Attorney General has said.
He has said.
An early reminder.
Exactly, you know, so, and he's been called to order by the international community because obviously Kenya is strategic in Africa. I mean, let's face it. And for a lot of Western countries and their allies, anything that happens in that particular sub-region, in Kenya, would affect that particular sub-region. You know, and a lot of Western countries have their headquarters there, many in South Africa, many in Kenya. So it's not going to do them any good at all. And so stability is critical. Yeah. And so
now the U.S. ambassador, as well as the British High Commissioner, as well as the German ambassador, and some religious leaders have called for some kind of dialogue between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. But Odinga, on the other hand, is saying, what am I dialoguing
Uhuru, you mean?
Uhuru Kenyatta, between Uhuru and Odinga. Uhuru, exactly, is saying, there's nothing to dialogue about. Well, dialogue over.
I think first we have to understand why dialogue, what's the basis. For Odinga is calling for electoral reforms, okay? I don't know the basis. Maybe he felt that the way it is, it obviously will not favor any opposition. That's a ground, there's nothing wrong with it. But Uhuru, like any typical winner who wants to take it all, you know, for him, he just wants to move forward. I think he should be a bit more sensitive. Dialogue wouldn't hurt. I mean, you just come, sit, talk, hear what the opposition. Sometimes there's virtue in listening.
You think he should be sitting some ground? I mean, in the area of
electoral
reforms,
yes,
Uhuru has already started some form of reforms with the electoral process.
Well, if you say started some form of reform, the reform has to be all-encompassing. You have to take into consideration what the opposition would like to see as part of the reforms.
Well, okay. Can the opposition totally have its way? That's the point.
They don't necessarily have to have their way, but they should have their say.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So they have to sit together, talk. I said there's virtue in listening. It doesn't hurt. If you listen, you're not under any obligation to take it, obviously.
Yeah.
But you would have listened, and what you can accommodate, you accommodate. But it's not just about Uhuru accommodating. It's about the Kenyan people, ultimately. Because this is his last term. Unless there's something else going to happen along the line, as usually happens. You know?
Sometimes in Africa.
Sometimes in Africa. You know, but otherwise, this is his last term. And what he's saying is, oh, I just want to move on. Such discussions should be with my deputy. You know, I don't think that's right.
Have the Kenyans themselves even moved on with Kenyatta? That's the point.
Well,
maybe they're Odinga weary already.
I would say this. I would say this to you. What Kenyans want to do is move on. Your question is, have they moved on? Well, if you're moving on and there's still aggrieved people, you're moving on with dead weight. That's going to slow you down.
Okay.
Now, that's where the problem is. And for as long as you have those dead weights, and you know, when these things usually end up in a conflagration of sorts, because when you ignore people and you don't, every war ends with dialogue. So you may as well start dialoguing from the beginning. If you don't, then you begin to find pockets of resistance, you begin to find underground guerrilla attacks and agitations and all that.
Now,
you have no one to hold.
Yes, Odinga and his camp has said that it is either we're going to run proper democracy here with all the reforms, or we're going to seek self-determination. We've seen Western Kenya, there's been constant calls for self-determination recently. Do you see that anytime soon, or is just going to be used as a bargaining chip for some kind of attention?
Now, that's a danger when you don't dialogue. When you dialogue, you have people you can talk to, you can hold responsible. Odinga right now can feign ignorance when things start happening. He said, well, I'm hand in it. I wanted us to talk, you didn't let us talk. I'm not in charge, I don't know what's happening. You know what I'm saying? But if you have started talking to him, then you can hold him responsible. But if you've refused to talk to him, and he says, okay, I don't have a problem, it's okay, whenever you want to talk, fine. And these people start acting, says, I don't have control over them. You've refused to talk. I hope it doesn't happen. Not for Africa, not for Kenya, and certainly not for that region or the rest of Africa.
But of course, he's called for sustained protests and prolonged resistance. Well, we'll find out.
I don't know
we'll see how that pans out.
Yes, I don't know how much that can be sustained. I cannot guarantee. But what we cannot rule out is some form of underground guerrilla thing beginning to have agitation.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Victor Hai, African Affairs Analyst, thanks so much for joining us
Thank you for having
this
me.
morning.
All right.